Welcome, y'all. I go by Sandman Jones, and today we are going to be dancing, and we are going to be talking about one of my favorite books that I've read in a minute. And my dog, Bourbon, is going to be joining us. Bourbon's a very good boy, and he's looking at me while I'm recording this like, oh, you talking about me? Yeah, buddy, I'm talking about you. Anyways, the book that we are going to be talking about today is Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter, first book in the Burning series, and honestly, y'all, this is one of the dopest things I've read in a long time. This is the first book in a really long time that I just could not put down. Like, I think I read this entire thing in like a weekend, which is pretty unheard of for me for the past while, because normally if I'm reading a book that fast, it's even longer than this, like 1,000 pages or some shit, and this is the first one that's just been so gripping that I cannot put it down. Shit was awesome. This is going to be kind of divided into two pieces. We're going to have the non-spoiler discussion first, and then the second half of the video is going to involve spoilers. So I'll make it clear when we're getting to that point, so you can, navigate away if you have not read the book, because I really don't want to be spoiling this shit for you. It's just so fucking good. Rage of Dragons is a fantasy book that fits into the... Oh my god, I'm just playing with this toy. I'm getting distracted. Anyways, it fits into a bunch of different genres. Probably most notably is grimdark. So grimdark fantasy is basically fantasy that focuses on the awful fucked up things humanity gets up to. Yay, fucked up things. Definitely the most well-known grimdark fantasy out there is Game of Thrones. And this, has a similar tone at some points, but I think really sets itself apart in a lot of ways. First of which is that Game of Thrones is very, very political. It's almost like a political drama with fantasy elements. This is, I think, most notably comparable to Gladiator, in terms of just the action and the pacing and stuff like that. And it's, for the record, I didn't come up with that. That's more or less a quote on the back of the book. Game of Thrones meets Gladiator, and I really, really agree with that. So I'm going to get into that, like why I think that works so well. But another element that I think is important to mention, because it just makes this book kind of a breath of fresh air compared to a lot of fantasy, is it, as opposed to being heavily Eurocentric, where it's like, hey, here's European history, but with dragons. It's more Afrocentric, in terms of the naming, in terms of the architecture, and certain elements of the world building for sure. I wouldn't say all the elements of the world building, because there's a heavy focus on the caste system, which is much more of a Western, I don't want to say invention, I'm sure other cultures have done it, but we see that a lot in Western culture is caste systems, and the one here is, it does what it needs to do as the reader. It makes you mad. This shit is awful, but the book is awesome, and it's basically a revenge story. This is one of those cases where as far as I can tell, our main character is just too angry to die, and it works really, really well as a revenge story, because it also does a lot of things different. It kind of keeps you guessing in the right ways, while still delivering what it promises. Because I really do firmly believe in that stories have a promise made pretty early on. This is something that came from the Brandon Sanderson lecture series, where he talks about, every story starts with a promise of what the reader is going to get from the story. Then there's progress, you get the payoff. And the promise made here is one of revenge. And the author, Evan Winter, does a fantastic job of delivering on that and expanding on that, and just really showing, as he said in an interview, the way that cycles of violence kind of manifest. There's actually an interview he did on Daniel Green's YouTube channel. He's done a few different interviews there. If you somehow know about my channel and don't know about Daniel's, he's probably the best known fantasy YouTuber out there. Covers all sorts of different mediums and stuff like that. And that's actually how I originally found out about Evan Winter's work, is his interviews on the channel. And He's done, I think, 3 different interviews now, and they're absolutely fantastic. But something he talks about a lot in them, or at least not a lot, but early on when he's kind of, talking about what he's trying to do with Rage of Dragons and with the series, is exploring cycles of violence and exploring how these things manifest. And I think, once again, he did an absolutely phenomenal job of that. So let's get into some of the specific things I really loved about it. First of all, I really liked how it's very clear that our main character, Tao, it's pretty clear that Tao is very self-destructive. In fact, there were some times where I had to put the book down and just verbally say aloud, "Tao, why are you so self-destructive, Tao?" Because we really love this character despite all his flaws. In fact, I think every character here is like a deeply flawed person. Something that is it's just something you see come up a lot in Grimdark. There's definitely a few exceptions. We have, kind of some of our, I don't know exactly say it, but I guess, like, fellowship characters is the best word I can use for it. Characters who are, like, kind of part of the crew that, kind of friends of our main character. And they're not perfect, but they're not nearly as flawed as a lot of our other characters. Especially Tao. Tao is very self-destructive, which I found to be very refreshing in a revenge story, because in a lot of revenge stories, you gotta wait till you get to the end, and then the author or screenwriter or storyteller makes it clear, they were only doing this because they're self-destructive. And here, it's pretty clear, pretty early on, that is the case. And I thought that just lends a really great element of depth to the characters and just experiencing their journey. Something else that the author did a phenomenal job of is when Evan Winters wants you to hate a character, you hate that character. Like, this is largely kind of a reflection of the cast system that we see present in the world building, which is really interesting. This is going to be some minor spoilers for just the world building right here, but I don't think most people care. Just wanted to clarify that. The caste system here is justified by the biology of the people. Like, more or less, the higher up in the caste system someone is, the more physically strong they are, which, for a society that's very, very focused on war and fighting and stuff like that, it means royals are literally just stronger and more powerful. So there is a slight biological justification for it, but that doesn't make it any less horrible. I mean, the caste system is used in just as horrific ways as we see it used in our world. So I think the author really did justice to that in the narrative. And just kind of uses that in really interesting ways to kind of get the reader more invested. Like, there were so many times where, I couldn't put it down because I just wanted to see some character get punished for how they're abusing the caste system, and just the fact that our main character, who of course is not high up in the caste system, but just how these characters justify dehumanizing people who are lower in the caste system, and just how this plays out. And in a lot of ways really reflects the caste systems of our world, the awful shit that they are used to justify, and the dehumanization that comes along with it, as well as the ignorance from people higher up in the caste systems. And it's just overall really interesting. Also, just honestly, let's just get this out of the way. The action is fucking dope, y'all. That action is so fucking sick. And something else that the writer accomplished really well, in my opinion, is that the action, normally with a book, if it's all action, or a movie, if it's all action, you get kind of fatigued by that as the viewer, because there's no break. When everything's at a 10, it kind of moves down from a 10 to 2 or 3 for me. And I know a lot of other people feel the same way. If there's too much action, then we can't really... I don't know, we can't really appreciate it because there's no moments where things slow down. And this book is like 90% action, it felt like 75, 90%. There's a lot of fucking action in this book. Yet it never falls into that trap. It never feels like it's overdone. It never feels like we need some slice of life stuff to go along with it. We get just enough downtime to really, really appreciate the action. And there's really not much downtime. And the downtime always moves the story forward. I know that's just a general thing that we should expect in our stories, but it's kind of amazing how often books, especially in the fantasy genre, have long sequences of exposition or long sequences of description that some people really like it, and I can definitely appreciate it at times, but if it's not moving the plot forward, it's a lot easier for me to get bored, or at least if it's not evident how the plot's moving forward from it. So, yeah, I think the pacing was really, really excellent. The world building was interesting. The action is so fucking dope. I loved the character work, all that stuff. Let me just get this out of the way. This is not a review. I personally don't feel that I'm well read enough to do reviews, and I also just don't really want to develop that skill, to be honest. It's something that a lot of other people do, and I respect them for it, but it's just not really what I'm feeling. I just kind of want to talk about the books that I really like. So with that in mind, let's get into the spoiler part of our discussion. So we have like 5 seconds here. Spoilers. Heavy spoilers for the first book coming up. If you don't want those, probably leave now. Thank you for watching. Everyone else, let's get into it. Alright, so spoiler talk. First of all, I honestly really, really thought, especially with all the magic going on in this, that Tao would at some point develop magic. And I really like that the author chose not to do that. That he keeps our character relatively weak in comparison by not giving him any magic abilities, you know. There's also the fact that in the way the world building works and the way the magic system works, men can't use the magic, and our main character is a man, well, young man. But, you know, part of me kept expecting, oh, Tao's gonna get some magic. Oh, Tao's gonna get some magic. Tao never gets magic. He just gets angry. And I swear to God, anger is his superpower here. He is driven by that anger to do some very self-destructive things, which also make him very, very powerful. It makes him much more easily able to achieve his revenge goals, but does not make it any less self-destructive. Like, yeah, his trips to Ishiogo, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, his trips to Ishiogo definitely are incredibly self-destructive. I mean, he's literally letting himself get torn apart by demons 5 or 6 times every night. But by doing that, he gets crazy time to train, because it's kind of like dreaming, in that, you know, time moves much, much more slowly in that universe. So yeah, he's only there for like 30 seconds at a time in our world, but in there, he's there for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It does always end with him getting torn apart by demons and horrifying creatures. So that's bad, and that definitely affects his mental health. It's not like he escapes without consequences there. But it does give him all sorts of chances to really, really flesh out his fighting skills, learn how to fight against insane odds, become completely fucking fearless. And that really comes back into play a lot throughout the story. I also really, really liked the fact that, you know, early on, that promise that I was talking about is like, I'm gonna kill these 3 people. And by the end of the story, the one who we want to see die the most gets killed by him in an awesome, fucking sick fashion, where he just Tao has all the odds stacked against him. This guy becomes enraged, which means he's like 2 or 3 times the size and extra muscly, and swords can't even cut him well. And Tao still beats him. And it just sends such a fuck you, because of course that guy is a royal, and Tao is like a common. So there's an extra sense of surprise on the guy's face when he dies. Like, I can't believe the common killed me while I was enraged. And it's like, yeah, fuck you ain't shit. Tao, fuck you up. And I loved that. But, you know, the other 2 people on his list of people he wants to get revenge against turn out to be okay people. Like, one of them kind of dies protecting the queen near the end as the queen's champion, who we really... Like, we don't know too much about him, but he just kind of seems like a guy doing a job. He doesn't seem nearly as malicious as the other folks. And then the other one, who I remember when Tao said he wants to kill him, even early on I was like, Tao, this person's really not too responsible. They tried to save your dad. They didn't, like, they tried to do what they could to not end his life, and it was the other people who were responsible. That person ends up becoming a friend by the end of it. I mean, as close to a friend as Tao really has. And so that was really powerful, and unexpected. You know, it kind of just shows not just flipping the script on us and keeping us guessing, but it also shows a lot more humanity in these characters than Tao is willing to give them credit for. But it's still a revenge story. You know, he's still driven by this desire to seek revenge on the people who were responsible for the death of his father. And now we are moving towards the ending where things really changed in a pretty unexpected, really rapid way when the rebellion starts, when there's a coup against the queen because the queen is trying to arrange a peace treaty with this group that they've been at war with for 200-something years at that point. And within this, it's, you know, this is just the writer and me talking. The writer, like, it was for a while really hard for me to read because I would just overanalyze everything. This is the first book in a while where I've just been able to sit back and enjoy it without trying to think about all the pieces the author's moving around. But in retrospect, after I finished this section and after I finished this, it was a really brilliant decision to make, you know, this coup happen, because then we can kind of start to see the caste system being challenged by not just our main character. Of course, like, the main character's, you know, the big force of change in this, but it's not like it's only him at this point. The coup really opens up a lot of options for this caste system to become brought to the center of the society and the focus, and also to get dismantled. I mean, it's not getting dismantled too much right now, but by the end of the book, I mean, another spoiler alert if you haven't finished it, but at the end, Tao becomes the new Queen's champion. And that is unheard of, completely unheard of for a common, or a lesser, whatever we want to call him based on where he is in the caste system. And that shit was just so dope. Not just the action sequence that proves that, yes, he is the right choice for this. He is the most fearless, strongest warrior out there. But also just that, you know, he's proven himself. Despite everything going against him, despite the fact that his stature is not built for it, despite the fact that the society is so far against it, he still is able to achieve these pretty amazing things, but he's achieving it through self-destructive acts. I mean, he can only do these things because he's willing to push himself so far that he can't catch up to his own thoughts, that he can't realize how miserable he is, because he's too busy fighting, he's too busy training, he's too busy getting fucking torn apart by demons. Like, there is so much depth to this character just through the way that he embraces these self-destructive acts for the sake of revenge, which is also self-destructive. So it's really interesting to see that. I also really liked how his childhood friends come back into the fold at the end. I will say, I wish a little bit more was done with Jabari, but at the same time, I think it serves well for the story, and it also kind of gives me more to hope for him in the future books, which I'm going to get started on. Actually about to go buy the next one from the bookstore after I finish recording this. And then lastly, let's talk about the elephant in the room, or the dead elephant in the room, Zuri. I was so fucking sad when Zuri died, because she was really the only thing keeping Tao going that wasn't a desire for revenge. And she died, and, you know, I wasn't willing to admit it until it happened. Part of me was like, no, Zuri's gonna live, it's gonna be okay, Tao will save her, someone will save her, and then she just dies. I was like, damn. And, you know, it doesn't leave Tao too much to live for. But we'll see how it goes in the next book. I'm excited to keep talking about this, keep reading this. Definitely check out Rage of Dragons if you haven't already. Shit is awesome. And don't forget to dance and have fun at the end of the day. Peace, y'all.